Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the SEC Morning Report. I am Blayne Gilmer. This is Southeastern 14, your home for daily SEC sports coverage. Basketball is about to get kicked up, guys, and we always cover everything in the baseball offseason as well. But this is football season, and we are right in the thick of it here as we're hitting the home stretch of the SEC season. Guys, remember the channel's growing rapidly. If you want to be a part of this with us, then make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that join button if you want to be a member of the channel as well. And then also, if you think your business would like to target an audience of SEC fans, then you can hit up caroline.smith@southeastern14.com to see how you can partner with us in advertising and things of that nature. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in, and it is time to go inside the numbers in some of these matchups here that we're going to have in SEC Week 9 play. Guys, we like to go in here and compare where are the strengths and the weaknesses in some of the key metrics and things that you're going to be looking at in these matchups. Now, some of them we go in more detail than others. One, I just wanted to bring up real quickly on this South Carolina and Texas A&M game. Guys, the Aggies are a 14-point favorite, and I would expect that number to maybe even increase as you're going forward with before kickoff on Saturday with South Carolina's troubles on the offensive line. They continue to have guys hurt and banged up, and I just don't know how they're going to protect Spencer Rattler there with the crowd noise, the 12th man, and all that kind of stuff with all the injuries they have up front. All you need to know matchup-wise and inside the numbers-wise on Texas A&M in South Carolina is that Texas A&M is first in the SEC in sacks and first in the SEC in tackles for a loss in terms of their defense, getting in the backfield, creating havoc, things like that. South Carolina ranks 12th and 13th, respectively, in sacks and tackles for a loss allowed. They've allowed 30 sacks on the year, guys, and they've allowed 56 tackles for a loss against their offense. So they just do not have the offensive line that is needed to go in here and withstand the onslaught that's going to come from that front seven of Texas A&M, especially with Adrian Cooper and Walter Nolan trending towards playing according to Jimbo Fisher. So we shall see how that one goes out. But I think, guys, that will be the tail of the tail there for South Carolina and Texas A&M. Now, guys, let's go ahead and hop into Georgia and Florida. 3:30 kickoff on CBS. Georgia 14.5-point favorite. Of course, they're going to be without Brock Bowers, but we're going to go ahead and look into a lot of these numbers here on these two matchups. So let's look at when Florida has the football. We'll look at Georgia's defense versus Florida's offense. Guys, you can see right here that Georgia is first in points per game on defense. Allowed points per their scoring defense is first in the SEC. These are all SEC rankings that you see beside them. And Georgia's also first in third down conversion percentage defensively and explosive plays allowed. So those are what they're good in. What Georgia's not great in is they don't get a lot of sacks. They're 13th in the country in sacks and their red zone percentage. Now, that is a little misleading. Georgia has only allowed people into the red zone 15 times this year. But once they've gotten into the red zone against Georgia, they've scored touchdowns on 11 of those, so 73.77%. So that is dead last in terms of red zone touchdown percentage allowed. So that is something to look at if Florida does get in the red zone. Is Georgia able to keep them to 3 instead of 7s? And then on the other side of that, you see Florida's pretty good when they get in the red zone. They score touchdowns 67.74% of the time. So if you're looking for an advantage of Florida's offense versus Georgia's defense, that's where that one would be. The rest of the numbers not great for the Gators. They're not very explosive, only 33 explosive plays. That's combined passing and rushing plays of over 20 yards. Guys, they were only 33rd. They only have 33. That's 10th in the SEC. 29.1 points per game, 9th in the SEC in scoring, and they've allowed 19 sacks, guys. That's 10th. But the biggest thing right there is you look at that third down comparison. Kentucky's only converting 33.33% of their third downs, guys. That is 12th in the SEC. Now, one thing about these stats is you can see that stat, but you can also look at third down passing and see that Graham Mertz has completed the highest percentage of third down passes at over 71%. However, not many of those have been long enough to convert. So they've not, numbers can be misleading when you look at things, but the biggest thing there is Florida is not great at being able to convert on third down offensively. So that means you're behind the chains a little bit. You're behind schedule in terms of staying where you need to be able to have those convertible third downs. And then Georgia does a very, very good job of getting people off the field on third down. Like I said, that red zone touchdown percentage number is something to look at for Georgia and Florida there. Georgia has not had the greatest success on either offense or defense in the red zone this year, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But in terms of the sack number, I will say this: I think Kirby Smart and company, it's not a priority. They don't send a whole lot of pressure. It's more of, instead of just penetrating in the backfield type defense, Kirby Smart's defense have always been more of a boa constrictor, right? They just constrict space and they don't allow you to get any kind of explosive plays on you. They prevent you from converting on third down, and they get you off the field. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you see them bring a little bit of pressure at different times. They tend to do that in some of these bigger games, like Tennessee last year. Georgia was, one of the worst in the league in sacks created going into that game. And they ended up getting, 3 or 4 of them, a couple with Javon Bullard on a pressure that they put in for that game specifically. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Georgia get a little bit more pressure in this one, but those are the numbers of Florida's offense versus Georgia's defense. Now let's flip it around here and see what it looks like when Georgia has the ball, and it's going to be a little bit different, right? Because Brock Bowers isn't there, but let's see what their numbers look like so far this year. Georgia is averaging 40.1 points per game. That's second in the SEC to Florida giving up 20 points per game. That is the 5th best in the SEC. Sacks, okay. Florida is dead last in getting sacks. So we talked about Georgia being 13th. Well, Florida's the only team that's worse. They're 14th. Only 11 sacks on the year. Georgia is first in terms of preventing sacks. Okay, sacks allowed. They've only Carson Beck has only been sacked 6 times on the year. Georgia is very, very good at converting third downs, 57.14%. Florida is also good on third down defensively, only allowing people to convert 29.11%. That's third in the SEC. So you got a good third down offense in Georgia versus a good third down defense in Florida. The red zone touchdown percentage, not been great for either one. Florida, now, again, small sample size. People have only gotten to the red zone on Florida 16 times this year, but 11 of those times they have scored touchdowns, just very, very similar to Georgia's defense. So they are 12th in the conference at 68.75% touchdown percentage in the red zone. Georgia hasn't been as good as they would like to be offensively in the red zone, only scoring touchdowns 62.05% of the time, which is 9th in the SEC. Georgia has been rather explosive, 44 explosive plays this year. That's 4th in the conference, and Florida has allowed 28 explosive plays. I will say this: when you look at the splits and you take out, okay, how does Georgia do on third down on the road? Their number actually gets even higher. The offense has converted third downs at 65% on the road. Now that's at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, but Carson Beck has shown, hey, when he's in an environment that is not Sanford Stadium, he still is able to perform at a high level, especially on third down. You remember that Auburn game, a game where needed those conversions, he was able to really get it done. So I'm excited to see that matchup. Austin Armstrong, that Florida defense, how they scheme up against Georgia on third down, particularly with no Brock Bowers, okay? because that's the down where he would be typically looking for Brock Bowers, also Ladd McConkey a lot on third down as well. But now will Dominic Lovett step up and be that other target on third down? Does Ra Thomas win some one-on-ones on the outside? Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, they've got some weapons. It's just how do the tendencies end up playing out? So I'm excited to see the matchups there in between those. So guys, make sure to comment on what you think about those statistical matchups there between Georgia and Florida. I'm excited to see how those end up playing themselves out and which ones we can go back to and say, hey, this team did this well going into this matchup, and they either continue to do that well and that's why they won, or they didn't perform up to their normal standard and that's why they lost this game. So we'll be able to go back and point at some of that stuff. So make sure you're staying with us here on Southeastern 14 as we react to stuff on Saturday evening. Now, also, guys, we are going to jump in here to Tennessee and Kentucky. I am fascinated by this matchup. You know, we're going to talk about numbers here in a minute, but I'm just fascinated by this matchup from a intangible standpoint. Okay, from stuff that you can't see on metrics and stuff that you can't really see, touch, feel, smell, all that kind of stuff. Everything that is just the mental part of this and the confidence part of this. Tennessee having been on the road and had such a at such a high water mark at halftime, thinking everything going their way, and then it comes crashing down in the second half. A physical contest against Alabama, and you have to go on the road at night to Kentucky in a physical matchup there. But Kentucky has some confidence issues as well, as they were in the same boat. They raced out to a 14-0 lead on Missouri in their last contest and collapsed as well and end up losing that game by 17 points. So when it comes down to it, these are both teams that we're going to see who responds to adversity better. And I don't think that's anything you can measure in terms of a metric. It's going to see, okay, who comes out and starts to set the tempo early and also is really being physical. And I think Kentucky having a bye week, that's a big help for them. But Tennessee just totally dominates Kentucky in this matchup, and they did so last year. So we'll see how that goes. But let's look at the numbers here, and we will look first at when Tennessee has the football and Kentucky is on defense. Guys, you see both of these teams right there towards the middle of the pack in the SEC in terms of points per game. Tennessee scoring 31.6. That's sixth in the conference. And you have the Kentucky Wildcats giving up 23.6 per game. That's ninth. Sacks, Kentucky's dead middle right there, just barely below the middle point at 16 and 8th in the conference. Tennessee only allows 12 sacks. They've done a really good job of protecting Joe Milton. That's good for third in the conference. Third down, Tennessee is fifth in the conference, but that number at 43.14% is not good enough to get it done for what Tennessee wants to do. They're going to have to be better than that on the road, I think, in this game. But they do have a opportunity there because Kentucky is allowing opponents to convert 43.88% of third downs, 13th in the conference. That is not very Mark Stoops like in terms of his defenses. So that's something that they've had to focus on the bye week, trying to get people off of the field when they have the opportunity. And then red zone touchdown percentage. Tennessee is dead last in the conference in red zone touchdown percentage, and boy, did that come back to bite them against Alabama. So they're going to be working on that the red zone plays this week, trying to figure out what they can do to punch it in and get sevens instead of threes over there. Kentucky's just kind of right in the middle. Tennessee is also not explosive at all this year. Only 26 explosive plays, so plays of 20 yards or more this year, 13th in the conference. Kentucky's pretty good at limiting them, 5th in the conference. I think if you are Kentucky, what you're looking to do is force Tennessee to be methodical, continue to not give up explosive plays like you've done most of the year defensively, and then you see Tennessee's red zone touchdown percentage number, dead last in the conference, not able to punch it in when they need to at the end. You've got to force Joe Milton and company to earn their way down the field. Don't allow the big explosive plays like they allowed a year ago in Neyland Stadium. And I think, with 2 weeks to prepare, Brad White and Mark Stoops, that's got to be their focus here. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I know that Kentucky plays a lot of, they'll play a lot of matchup, quarters type coverages and things like that, but I wouldn't be surprised to give some too high safety looks, stay over top, give some help, things of that nature. They got to do a good job of trying to stop Tennessee's run, because that's where Tennessee wants to get things going first, and then they hit you with the shot plays. But I think Kentucky's got to try to just limit the explosive plays and make Joe Milton and company on the road in a great environment there in Kroger Field, where fans, should be ready to go after the sting of the Missouri loss has kind of worn off here, and now they get to come back, another home game at night, all those kind of things. That will be interesting to see how Tennessee handles that. But Tennessee also is very, very good on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what we're going to go to next. I think you got to give this Tennessee defense a lot of credit for how they get havoc, how they are really quality in just about every metric. So let's go ahead and look at the Tennessee defense. You can see here with all the numbers here, Josh Heupel has built a true top 5 defense in the SEC. They're third in points per game allowed in 19.4. Kentucky right in the middle, average in the conference 31.3 per game. Tennessee gets sacks, guys. They have 28 sacks on the year. That's third in the conference. Kentucky does a good job of limiting sacks. They've only allowed 11 sacks on the year, so they've been protecting Devin Leary. He's only been sacked 11 times, so second in the conference in terms of that. Tennessee, very, very good on third down conversion percentage as well. Only allowing opponents to convert 33% of the time. That's fourth in the conference. And Kentucky's just average, guys. They have to be better on third down. In fact, it may be average in the SEC, but that's definitely below average in terms of the standards of being a good team. You want to be much higher up there towards 50%. Third down conversion rate if you're Kentucky. And a lot of that has to do with Devin Leary and not being able to get on the same page with his receivers this year. That is why they're not better in that metric. Red zone touchdown percentage, Kentucky trending up towards the top half of the league. A lot of that has to do with Ray Davis, and they're able to run the ball well in the red zone, but Tennessee limits people's red zone touchdown percentage, guys. They've only allowed touchdowns on 45% of the trips inside of their red zone, and Tennessee does a good job of not allowing explosives as well. Only 24 explosive plays against the Tennessee defense. Kentucky has 38 explosive plays offensively, guys. What it's going to come down to is, can Kentucky continue to protect Devin Leary at a good rate? Because he has had protection, guys, but in terms of the receivers and Devin Leary, they have just not been on the same page. Whether it's Devin Leary either doesn't throw a good ball, and when the receivers are wide open, that happens. That's happened a lot of times. It's happened a couple of times against Georgia, a couple of times against Missouri. And then, guys, there's also been times where Devin Leary has put it right on the money and his receivers have just totally let him down. A lot of inconsistency out of Dane Key. I think they were looking for more out of him, of course. And then when you look at guys like Tavion Robinson, Barron Brown, they just haven't been the explosive weapons I think that Kentucky was looking for this year. You saw Jace McClellan kind of hammer away and be very, very methodical with his 27 carries for Alabama against that Tennessee defense in the second half. I think you're going to see Ray Davis get close to 30 carries in this game for Kentucky. I think that's going to be how they try to go about things. But Devin Leary has to be better on third down. He has to be better, just taking care of the football as well. You can't turn the football over like they did against Missouri either. Of course, turnovers always have a huge thing to say about all of this. Guys, inside the numbers for Auburn and Mississippi State, the thing about Mississippi State is they played a atrocious atrocious Arkansas offense that was, according to Sam Pittman, trying to do things that just didn't fit them and things like that. That's why Dan Enos is gone. Mississippi State, I think what this is all going to come down to is how are they able to limit Auburn's run on early downs, okay? Because if you put Auburn in 3rd and 5 or longer, well, that might as well be 3rd and 15 for most teams, because their passing game is so inept and unable to convert and things of that nature. I need to see Watson. I need to see Johnson, all those guys over there on that Mississippi State defense step up and limit Jarquez Hunter, limit the legs of Robbie Ashford and Peyton Thorne early. Brian Batty, all of these guys that run the ball for Auburn, try to limit them on early downs, keep them in 3rd and 5 or longer. And I think that's a recipe for success for Mississippi State's defense, because the passing game of Auburn has just struggled so mightily, guys. I can't believe, when you look at how Auburn does in terms of their passing offense, guys, absolutely dead last in the SEC, only completing 59% of its passes, and they only average 151 passing yards per game, 6.4 yards per attempt. So, like I said, the Auburn passing attack is not doing a very good job of creating threats down the field. So I think what Mississippi State has to do is they're going to have to be very, very good in terms of their rush defense. They've been just kind of average to this point. They're allowing 3.5 yards per carry is Mississippi State, which is 8th in the conference, guys, and 127 yards per game. That is what Auburn's going to do. I think you're going to see Zach Arnett and company be ultra aggressive the way they were in the Arkansas game, when there wasn't a real big threat of the pass, with how Arkansas has struggled. Now, a lot of that had to do with Arkansas's protection of the passer, and let's see how Auburn has done. So Auburn has not been able to protect the passer when they are in obvious passing downs. They've had 20 sacks allowed on the year, and I think you'll see a very aggressive Zach Arnett defense. I think he's more involved in calling the plays now, and he brought that pressure against Arkansas, created a lot of headaches for KJ Jefferson. Now, it's not going to be a lot of drop back like they saw against Arkansas. It's going to be more RPO, trying to get the ball out quickly and stuff like that. But I think if they're aggressive, you could see some headaches caused over there. But I do think, hey, you're also talking about Jordan-Hare Stadium. You're talking about how Auburn plays just to a different level in front of those fans. And I think it's going to be easier said than done in limiting Auburn's run game with as multifaceted as it is if you're Mississippi State. So I'm looking forward to that one. But I do think Auburn will have success on early downs. But if they don't, if they're starting to struggle on 1st and 2nd down and get a lot of those 3rd down situations where, they're kind of in that gray area where Hugh Freeze would love to run the football because of the identity of their team, but you really kind of have to throw it and nobody's there to step up on the outside for Auburn, then that could be a way that Mississippi State has success in this ball game. And then, guys, the only other game that we have is Ole Miss and Vandy, and that's just not even worth going into the numbers for, because Ole Miss, I think they'll run the ball extremely well. Vandy can't stop the run at all, and then they'll get whatever they want, because when Lane Kiffin can run the football, then his entire offense opens up. So, guys, that has been Inside the Numbers here on Southeastern 14, this SEC morning report. I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you have, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and then also hit that join button if you want to be It Just Means More member here of the channel. It just helps us, guys, be able to continue to create these videos for you, a lot of content that we're pumping out. Make sure to check out the Daily Show later on today, SEC Daily with Chris Lee, Gavin Schoenwald, former Vanderbilt tight end. He'll be on the channel with us. Also, Blake Lovell does a lot of great work, and he's going to start up basketball here soon. But like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Remember, if you would like to advertise to a ever-growing base of SEC fans, then you can hit up caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. And guys, we will catch you tomorrow morning for another episode of the SEC Morning Report right here on your home for daily SEC sports coverage, Southeastern 14.